If a woman said, I just don't feel like this baby anymore, 2 days before the due date, you'd still say that your
That does
system,
not happen.
it doesn't matter if it happens. You would say, if that did
No,
happen,
yes, it does happen. Those are extremely rare cases.
when does life begin?
Life begin? That would be different than when you consider somebody a person.
Okay, when would life begin though? Can you answer that question?
I mean, I really can't tell you when something
Okay,
would
so
be
you don't know.
considered alive.
When does someone become a person?
I would say somebody becomes a person when they can live like on their own outside without being dependent physically on the mother.
Do you believe that people have the right to life under your moral framework?
Sure.
So then you would be against murdering someone that's innocent.
Sure.
Okay, when should abortion be allowed up until?
Up until 40 weeks, like the entire time.
So 2 days before the due date, we should be allowed to have abortion.
Sure.
I don't think that that's rounded in rationality whatsoever. I think that's monstrous.
No, yes, it is.
I think that's against the 10th Amendment. And
my position is based on the data, and the data shows that later term abortions, like you're talking about, are only done in cases of medical necessity. They are not done like when if somebody is pregnant and they're looking to actually have the baby and they reach the 40-week mark, they are intending to have the baby. The only reason why you would want to have an abortion at that point is because of a medical problem. And this is what the data shows. Now, the reason why later term abortions end up happening now is because you have so much legislation that is closing abortion clinics, and women are not able to get to either to any kind of abortion or pregnancy services in time in order to have it in an appropriate time. If we made abortion illegal and there were more areas in which were served with abortion and other pregnancy and sex services, then you would not see later term abortions happen unless it was a medical necessity.
Okay, first off, that's not true. Second, it's irrelevant. So we could get into the data view. It's not true. It's not relevant.
It is true. It is not. It is relevant.
It is not. And you filibustering, talking over won't change the fact. The reason it's not relevant is such. It doesn't matter if it happens or not. You're saying that your system of secular humanism would establish law through a code of morality through rationality. So it doesn't matter if people use this or not. You're saying they should be allowed to. That's what you just said. So it doesn't matter if no one ever does it. You would make it legal to murder a baby in the womb 2 days before the due date. Yes. That's what you said.
It wouldn't be murdering a baby.
Yeah. You would it be killing the baby?
I mean, it would be killing something, but I mean, it's no different than a a miscarriage.
So then it's a completely irrelevant discussion as to how women do this. All that matters is, even if a woman said, I just don't feel like this baby anymore, 2 days before the due date, you'd still say that your system
does not happen.
It doesn't matter if it happens. You would say, if that did happen.
No, yes, it does happen. Those are extremely rare cases, and
it should be legal.
I would personally disagree with it, but the law should allow abortion the entire
I don't think that that's rational whatsoever. I think that almost every person engaging in rationality.
I mean, you believe a dead Jew resurrected from the dead. I don't care. So you don't need to be talking about rationality.
You could insult me all you want. You are making a specific claim to rationality. You're saying that you don't have subjective moral principles, that yours comes through debate and rationality. It is clearly not the case. It is clearly not the case when almost any rational thinker, it is clearly not the case when almost any rational thinker could see that it is absolutely monstrous. It's absolutely monstrous to say that a baby 2 days from the due date, which has almost no biological difference then after that breach 2 days later, should be allowed to be killed. That's monstrous.
No,
yes, it is.
So allowing the pregnancy, allowing abortion the full time during pregnancy allows for those later term abortions that are necessary, are medically necessary for the health of the mother.
The Guttmacher Institute says that when it comes to late-term abortions, that actually a huge percentage of them are done from elective reasons and not for the well-being of the baby or the mother. Not realizing
I have no idea what that is. Is that like a right-wing think tank?
No,
the
Guttmacher Institute is one of the most prolific pro-choice institutions in the world.
Let's see. Let me
Guttmacher Institute data indicates that most late-term abortions, typically defined as those 20 weeks after, are elective and non-medical in nature, rather than primarily driven by severe fetal anomalies or immediate threats to the mother's life. This is based on the Guttmacher's 2013 study, published in Perspectives in Sexual Reproductive Health, which I apologize.
Wait, what are they defining as later term?
20 weeks or later.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where it's happening at. So this is exactly what I was talking about a second ago. In areas that are underserved for pregnancy and abortion services, women are unable to get to a suitable place to have the abortion, and so they end up having these later term abortions that occur 20 weeks and after. What you're talking about is closer to the 40-week mark, which is only done in cases of medical emergency. And the thing is that you shoot yourself in the foot here by outlawing abortion services and causing women this delay in getting those kinds of services. And I mean, you can look that up all you want to, but the whole later you're conflating the later term like actual definition there.
It's not, right? So later term would say we see viability. We see that actually fetal viability is above 50% at around 23 to 24 weeks. The majority of these late term abortions they're talking about occur after that 24-week period. In addition to that, you said that this doesn't happen at all. I already argued why it'd be irrelevant. You say that it should be allowed, and it certainly does happen.
No, I said it doesn't happen at all at the 2-day mark. People electively at the 2-day mark to deliver.
I'll finish my point. Now, my point of this is that you would be able to see that actually, I'm tired of you talking about it, so I'm just going to talk over it. That's fine. Now, to be fair, moderator, he's been allowed to talk over me the whole time, so I'm going to start returning the favor in kind. That seems only fair. And so if that's going to happen, if that's the point of bloodbath debate, then I'll be able to talk over him as much as he's talking over me. It doesn't matter to me. So I'll be able to do this and talk over him the whole time. That's what we were told the point of mega bloodbath debate is. So I'm going to...
And then John can respond, and then I'll bring up a super chat. Actually, two, because one's on this topic, and then pull it into a new topic. And make sure that you tie this back into the topic at hand, is Christian nationalism good for America?
Okay, so the point I'm making is that you have no proof whatsoever that that doesn't happen. In fact, I could bring up an article from The Atlantic of an abortion doctor who talks about how he's given these very late-term abortions, and almost none of them are done for reasons of health of the mother or health of the baby. He does them for elective reasons, including one time doing someone at a very late pregnancy because they didn't like the gender of the baby. The point is, it's irrelevant as to whether or not it happens. He just doesn't know the data. He's just asserting it. But the point is, he would make it legal. Now, what I'm trying to say is I'm providing a moral framework for the laws I want, and I've provided the only case for affirmative reasons why that's good: to increase birth rates, to increase social cohesion, to increase things that I think are sanctity of life like abortion laws, to increase Christians are happier, they have more economic success, they're less likely to go to prison, it promotes family values, which is better in health, mental health, physical health, economic health, innovation for the country. I presented all of these go untouched. He's only made a couple claims against my form of Christian nationalism. One, he said it's anti-democratic.
Yeah, he then argued all over the fucking
he then argues, right, that he accepts that the majority of the country is Christian, and therefore it would be anti-democratic if we said that they couldn't embrace their religion. He says that that's true because of the First Amendment, and yet it's clear that the First Amendment doesn't say that they wouldn't be allowed to use their Christianity to vote. And so he's given no offensive reasons whatsoever other than saying secular humanism good, which we've already shown isn't rational by the fact that he wants abortions to be legalized 2 days before the baby is born.
No, that's all total. Like everything that I have supported and I have said is totally rational. Everything that Rob just said was a total misrepresentation of the conversation that we've been having. When I said that, when I said most of the things about the later term abortions, it was in the context of 2 days prior to the delivery and all this other stuff. Like that's the context of that, not the grander definition of later term abortions, like he was saying, to which I then explained what that was actually about. And that's the fact that people like Rob limit the access to abortion services so that women have to travel farther, and that ends up with them having to get later and later abortions. So he's only shooting himself in the foot and causing those abortions to happen, as opposed to actually preventing the later term abortions from happening. So Rob is the problem in that particular section. Now, to address his whole quality of life and quality of society stuff, I haven't even been able to address it because Rob's been bringing up just randomly random things that have no bearing on any part of his argument, really. And how I would respond to that is the fact that just because you're forcing women to have children, just because you want to force women to have these large families, does not necessarily translate to a happy, healthy society. We actually do have plenty of markers for what makes a happy and healthy society. And I think that a happy, healthy society would be, or at least a happier and healthier society would be one in which families that want to have children do have children, and those that do not want to have children do not have children. That's how you have a happy, healthy society that has low crime rates as well as low poverty rates. And so I think that Rob and generally Christian nationalists, when they bring up the whole reproduction number or whatnot, typically they're totally neglecting the fact that immigration happens, and just people come in and out of a country, people move from one place to another, and all this other stuff. So like, he's totally neglecting that aspect of society that would definitely compensate for any kind of lowered birth rates or anything like that. But I think that the lowered birth rates are not necessarily a bad thing, because I think that what that means is that the people that want to have children are having children, and that ends up promoting the family unit that Rob seems to be very focused on here. And also, I'm trying to go through the list as they're coming up in my noggin here. Rob was mentioning the weakening of the family unit and all this other stuff. Rob thinks that it's only one man, one woman, and like 17 kids or something like that, and probably the dad with a few concubines on the side, that make a happy family. But in fact, there are multiple different versions of happy families: 2 men, 2 women, mixed races. I know that might make you a little mad there, Rob, but mixed race families can actually exist. The newer version of these like I forget what kind of.
Let's keep attacking the arguments, not the people, please.
Okay, well, I mean, it seems to be pretty much part of the white Christian nationalist agenda to disparage people of color. So I guess I was just assuming there, making an ass out of you and me. So I don't know. Yeah, I've what did you call it? Filibuster? I filibustered enough there.
Good, and then I'll feel free to actually make a bunch of points myself. So going in reverse order, the idea of calling me racist or anything is nonsensical, and again belies the rationality that he's claiming to have as a secular humanist. The idea that he says that we would force people to have babies, well, even he would have to agree that a secular humanist, all of them would probably agree, or if not, it would prove that the moral system is a failure, that we shouldn't allow for the killing of innocent people. But certainly a secular humanist could say that they dispute what other secular humanists say when is viability, or when we consider someone a person. He would have to agree to that. So it's not the idea that I'm forcing people to have babies. He has a subjective interpretation of when humanity is. It turns out that science disagrees with that. They say that life most likely begins at conceptions, and certainly those that disagree say that it happens shortly into a pregnancy. In fact, most would say by 14 weeks, almost all science would say that this is what we would consider a human life, right? The idea that he wants to have a subjective interpretation that means even up till the day of the due date that we should be allowed to exterminate this life shows that he is actually on the fringe and actually pushing something that should be against his own values, which is murder. This is why we should embrace a Christian framework that says that we shouldn't advocate murder. He says that this will lead to a bunch of later term abortions, but this is a nonsensical position. We shouldn't establish law by saying that if we see something that truly we all think is repugnant and immoral and that we should think is illegal, we don't don't make it illegal because more people will violate the law and do the very thing we made illegal. That's nonsensical. It would be the equivalent of saying, if we raise taxes another 5%, this will lead to less people paying taxes because they'll revolt. That would be nonsensical to say that we wouldn't do that because we're afraid that more people would break the law. The moral imperative isn't on me at that point. It's with the people breaking the law. I'm not going to say that murder should be justified, and therefore, even though we think this is a human life, we should allow it to be murdered, because if I don't, then more people will murder it at a later date. That would be disgusting. The moral imperative would be on those people. As far as declining birth rates, this was one thing that I said that we'll address it, and then I'll talk about the things that he didn't address, which is the positive things with values of the family. Declining birth rates will not be solvable by mass migration. What we see is that it will lead to cultural clashes and a lack of cohesion. And he doesn't contend with the fact that ultimately what we'll see, as we're seeing in some European countries like the United Kingdom, that we're going to import people from cultures that are actually going to be worse off from the very people he's claiming to want to stick up for, such as those in the LGBT. As we bring in more people from around the world that don't share his progressive ideology, they're not going to be as generous as the current crop of Christians are. And they're going to say, not only do we think things like gay marriage shouldn't be allowed and are we against anti-discrimination laws, but we will actively abuse and potentially even physically harm people that are homosexuals. He doesn't have any contention with this, nor does he have any evidence that mass importing these people will be something that would be beneficial in the first place. This will lead to a global society, and this globalism will be a return to neo-feudalism. That means there will be haves and have-nots, and the middle class will erode in this country for not just people that are Christians, but also for people in the LGBT community and elsewhere. He has no evidence whatsoever when we see that the birth rates that are actually increasing around the world are from people that are religious, Christians being one of those groups, but certainly groups like Islam are having birth rates that are even higher. This means if we embrace his idea of secularism, which the status quo is trending to, which will lead to declining birth rates both in the United States and around the world, that the population will inevitably be replaced by people that are the most antithetical to his secular humanist views, and he has no way of dealing with that. He also doesn't contend with the fact that we can see that Christian people, particularly Christian people that are in marriages, which I'm proposing Christian nationalists would not just pass laws to encourage through increased tax breaks, increased child tax credits, etc., increased tax breaks for marriage, not just pass those laws, but would actually help switch the culture to going back to a time we had in the past, such as in the 40s and 50s, where we saw children born out of wedlock were much, much, much lower. This means that these metrics show that not just for the children, not just for the husband, but also for the wife, happiness, economic viability, the need to, or the ability to stay out of prison, the ability to be employed, the ability to be able to afford things, the mental health, the physical health, all of these metrics show they're massively increased in the United States under Christian marriage. I'm able to solve all of these things through an advocacy of Christian nationalism. He has given no offensive reason whatsoever why you should reject Christian nationalism, other than to say it's authoritarian, which he himself is, because he admits that there is a democratic will if Christians decided they wanted to vote to have people that were Christians use that Christianity to factor in the laws, that it would be authoritarian to not allow them to do it. And he says the First Amendment means we couldn't, but he gives no reasoning for that whatsoever. So he has no offensive reasons whatsoever that we should not embrace Christian nationalism, other than to just make insults at me about being racist and stuff, which is childish.